House. Joining me right now is Louisiana Congressman, Vice Chairman of the House Republican Conference, Mike Johnson. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. What do you think? How likely is it that an agreement can be made on a solely infrastructure plan with no tax increases?
Well, we hope there's a good chance for it, Maria. You know, there's a huge bipartisan consensus that we need to do infrastructure spending. Obviously, that's an appropriate use of federal dollars, but the devil's always in the details on how you pay for it. We're not going to support tax increases. The Republicans in the House certainly are not going to. There's enough money in the budget. We can repurpose some of that unspent COVID money, and there are other ideas on how to do it. But we'll have to see what this proposal looks like, and there'll be lots of negotiations in the days going forward.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it comes down to a couple of senators, Joe Manchin, Christian Sinema, and others, and whether they would go along with this in the Senate. But I want to get your take on President Biden's budget. He obviously proposed a massive, whopping $6 trillion spending plan with no funding for defense, no funding for Homeland Security, massive increases in spending for things like the EPA, teachers' unions. Your thoughts on what President Biden's budget tells us?
Maria, this is a reckless spending plan. It would jeopardize vulnerable Americans. It would bankrupt the country. Be the largest sustained tax increase in U.S. history on working families and small business owners and farmers and employers at the worst possible time. I mean, they're talking about raising $55 trillion in taxes just over the next 10 years. They're also going to increase the national debt. We're at $28 trillion right now. Instead of reversing that dangerous trajectory, they want to increase it. So we'd be at $39 trillion in debt by 2031. Meanwhile, they'll allow taxpayer funding of abortion. They'll reduce military spending to the lowest levels since World War II. And by the way, we'll be paying so much on the interest alone in debt by 2031, it'll be more than the entire national defense budget. We cannot go along with this. And I think when the American people realize what's in this proposal, they'll be shocked.
Yeah, that was unbelievable when I noticed that the interest payments in year 10 are more than $900 billion. That is more than we spend on defense. We've got so many threats rising across the world, from communist China to Iran, and yet you see this administration lifting sanctions in an overture to Iran, lifting sanctions on 3 former Iranian officials, several energy companies amid these stalled nuclear talks. Congressman, your thoughts on the Armed Services Committee? You must have talked about this sanctions story with Iran. Your thoughts?
It's a terrible decision by the Biden administration. It looks subversive. It looks self-sabotaging. We can hardly believe that they would do this at this time. Obviously, Iran is the largest state donor, funder of terrorism worldwide. They're clearly an adversary. This budget and many of these initial actions by the Biden administration are a gift to our adversaries. They're a gift to Iran. They're a gift to China and Russia and the others who are looming right there in the shadows. We have to take foreign policy seriously. Kamala Harris is overseas. She made a big blunder in her first overture. You know, our adversaries see weakness. And Ronald Reagan said, Maria, as we all remember so well, weakness invites aggression. We maintain peace through our strength. And so we need to double down on the Trump policies, rebuilding the military, showing American strength. And if we do the opposite, we see the results of it.
Well, we will learn what the rest of the world thinks of American leadership, and whether we see that, you know, weakness on the global stage this weekend during the G7 talks. So we'll certainly be covering it. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for getting your perspective in here. Congressman Mike Johnson joining us this morning on This Leadership.